You know when you're talking to an older family member and you've got to repeat yourself 2, 3, 4 times before they even realize that you're talking to them? Because trust me when I say that is the story of my life. Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Kamilla, I'm from grade 9, and I would like to think I've got pretty good hearing, but I can't really say the same for my mother who's in her 50s. And I mean, hearing loss is something that's going to affect me eventually, and I've always wondered, is there anything I can do to prevent it? And is it going to be a gradual change, or is it just going to come like that? And I mean, beyond all of that, what even causes hearing loss? Why don't my ears decide to just not work anymore? And so, here is my hypothesis. I think that hearing loss is a gradual change that I will have to undergo as I get older. And now, I'm going to go gather data and find out if my hypothesis was correct. The normal human hearing range is from 20 Hz to 20,000 Hz. So I compiled an audio file of different frequencies and played it for over 40 different people of 4 different age groups. I told them to tell me the highest frequency they could hear and the lowest frequency they could hear. They had to use headphones, sit in a quiet room, and make sure the audio file was on the loudest possible volume. Okay, let's talk about how regular hearing works. Basically, vibrations will travel through our ear canal and then vibrate the eardrum, which will then vibrate a couple other things on its way to the inner ear, which has a lot of nerves which can take those signals to our brain, and that's how we hear. But there are a couple things that can impact this process. For instance, if there was a blockage in the ear canal. But this can be usually solved by a simple visit to the doctors. Here's a more permanent problem though. In our inner ear, we have something called a cochlea. A cochlea has stereocilia on top of it. And these are tiny little hairs that will pick up vibrations and assist our hearing. If anything goes wrong with these hairs, if they fall out, if they are damaged, our hearing will be greatly affected. And especially as well, our nerves in our inner ear, because those are the things that actually transport the signals to our brains. So if they're not working or if they're damaged, then our hearing will also be affected. So these are both problems that will begin to persist with age, which is why over here, you can see from left to right, I have children, teens, adults, and then seniors. And this is the general trend of their average hearing range. So lastly, I also chose to compare the person with the biggest hearing range and the person with the smallest hearing range within each age group. We've already established senior citizens typically are more prone to hearing loss, but so are little children because they are still developing. So it's super important not to expose little kids to loud sounds because this could cause premature hearing loss. And that's why not every single child was able to hear 100% of what I played them, but there were a few who were. And another thing that I should definitely touch on was the gaping gap, right, between the senior who was able to hear all but one sound, and then the senior who was only able to hear 2. Okay, so there's a pretty simple reason for this. It is not that the senior on the blue line lives next to a jet engine. It is actually that the senior on the orange line prefers to live a more quiet life. When they watch the fireworks, they take out earplugs with them. When they watch a movie or they watch YouTube, they put it on a lower volume, and they just generally avoid loud settings as much as possible. Whereas the person on the blue line kind of just lives life. And I think that as you get older, maybe you forget sometimes that you are more vulnerable and you need to take care of yourself a bit more. And another really interesting thing that I actually realized as I interviewed my family members and asked them about their hearing range was that the light sleepers tend to have better hearing than the deep sleepers. And the simple reason for that is that the light sleepers, if they hear a loud sound, they get up, they move away. Whereas deep sleepers don't even realize that there's a loud sound and they are kind of unintentionally exposing themselves to it. So in conclusion, my hypothesis was correct. Hearing loss is something that we gradually undergo, even though it doesn't seem gradual, as we get older. However, it's important to mention there are a lot of other factors such as genetic makeup or even just blockages, like I mentioned. And it is also super important to mention that there are a lot of preventative measures that we can and should take to prevent our hearing loss from getting so extreme. That is all. Thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum. This might be a bit far-fetched, But just remember, if you ever have a rat problem, you can only hear up to 20,000 hertz. But they can hear higher than that. So, do with this information what you will.